Okay. Hey everybody, this is Simply D,
Hi, it's Jules.
and you are now tuned in to the Innermix show, the Hangouts version. That means that you are here on Google Hangouts with us for the next, I don't know, 90 minutes or so.
Hour and a
Yeah,
half.
depending on what happens, what cracks off. I know that this topic was a very interesting thing that came up, and I see that it's affected a lot of people. I also want to let you guys know that while I was on vacation, my daughter decided that she was going to go and do some research on Intermix to figure out stuff. So while she was at her auntie's house, or her, yeah, my auntie's house, her, I guess that makes her her great auntie.
Great
Yeah,
grand auntie.
yeah, grand aunt, well, she's almost like a grandmother, so so anyway, she while she was over there, they decided to look up all things Intermix, and she came home with a newfound respect for what her daddy do. And Jules too. No, no. But she came back like, Daddy, you guys got a lot of viewers. Daddy, you guys, I mean, she was telling me our stats. I was like, that's my girl. So but we so we had a good time. So, like we like to do around here, before we even get into tonight's topic, because tonight we're talking about what do you expect? People tend to think it's okay to tell you what they expect out of you or what you should expect out of your life. But the question at the end of the day is, what do you expect out of your life? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to really start working on in this next, these next couple of weeks. We're going to just take time to really work on your self perception, because it's hard to maintain a sense of self perspective when so many things around you are telling you what you should and what you should not be. And at the end of the day, once you've figured out what your moral position is going to be in life, you need to then understand that, especially the way we do things, that your value, no matter whether you fat, skinny, tall, short, black, white, whatever you may be, or anywhere in the middle, like Jules and my wife, um, it don't matter. But one thing you do need to have is a sense of self. You have to know who you are, and that way, when people come to try to tell you that you are not that thing or that you cannot be the thing that you know in your heart God has called you to be, they can't not win the struggle, because it is a tug of war. And so we're going to talk about a lot of these things today. But before we jump too deep off into it, Jules, how was your weekend? What'd you do?
Wow. Well, after all that, my frivolous weekend. Well, it wasn't frivolous. It was good. It was really good. I spent Saturday just with my dad and with my brother. It was just a very good family weekend, actually, the whole weekend of soccer and family time. Other than that, it was just a bunch of church events that I had to also attend. But we had a really good dinner, and then we had on Sunday, I haven't gone here in a really long time, but went to Redondo Beach because my dad's he has two favorite things in the world. One of them is beef ribs, and the other thing is crab. So I wanted to give him as much of beef ribs and crab as possible while he's here on his trip, because he's leaving this week, and I probably won't see him for another year or so. And so, yeah, it just was a lot of family time. It was great. I miss it a lot. I cherish it with every morsel I can get. So, yeah, that was it, pretty much.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, how was your weekend?
My weekend was cool.
Or your week? How was your vacation?
My vacation was cool. I practiced not working, and I did that as much as possible. And I me and my wife, we just spent time just relaxing. I mean, it wasn't the kind of vacation that you think of when you think going on vacation. It was one of those kind of vacations that your body tells you need. So our vacation was wrapped up in a very simple cycle. We'd wake up, we'd go eat, we'd walk around for a little while, we look at different things. We saw things in Laughlin that reminded us of Jules, and then we yeah, just really random, but we really literally read something and we said, oh, that's Jules, we need to take a picture and send that to her. But then we didn't do it. So but it was but after that we would go back, we we would walk for a little while, walk by the river, go back to our room, lay down, pass out, wake up a couple hours later, go eat something, walk around. So, it was a very simple cycle. And my wife and I, for, those of you who don't know, we don't really get to stand still. Like we don't get to just sit back and enjoy a lot of moments together or rest. I mean, we enjoy each other's company. We laugh, we joke, but we're always laughing and joking on our way to somewhere, whether it's on our way to church, on our way to an Innermix related situation, on our way to do a research thing for whatever, on our way to her job, whatever related stuff. It used to be union stuff, or on our way to sleep. Those are the but we're always on our way somewhere. We're never really just sitting still. And so then when we do sit still, it's to recap on all the things that we had to run to make sure that we're up to speed. And then when we have time, the quality time that me and my wife spend together is talking about God and how in our relationship with God. So, and to keep each other lifted up and strong, and to laugh and joke about the way that we recognize God's sense of humor when it comes to our lives and how we are together. So we celebrated our 12-year anniversary yesterday. And but we've been together for 14 years, and it feels like maybe a year has passed, since we started this whole journey. If not for my incredible memory, I would really literally think that maybe only a year had passed. And when we were on our trip, one of the blackjack dealers, the roulette dealer, was cracking up because she couldn't believe that we were so happy losing money. And she's like, how can you guys just laugh and laugh and laugh? And it's like, why wouldn't we laugh? Like, why wouldn't we have a good time? And she is not used to seeing people together who have been together as long as we have, who are still happy in each other's company. And but then
I
started hearing that comment a lot. Like we heard it on the cruise when we were celebrating our 10-year anniversary. We heard it in Laughlin. I heard it a few times in Laughlin. Even when I was going down to take care of something downstairs, this woman came up to me. She's like, "You're the one who's still in love with their wife, huh?" like that's that's like it's so foreign, It's so interesting. So I'm like, wow, this is an epidemic. Like, there's a problem, So, but yeah, so we had a good time just resting. We didn't, like I said, it wasn't the kind of vacation you picture. It was the kind of vacation that I think we needed.
That's the kind of vacation I picture. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm more active. It's like Vegas versus Laughlin. My wife is Laughlin. I'm Vegas, but I'm so glad that she's Laughlin. So when we go, and everything was just so nice there that it was just a great way to relax and talk and hang out and all that good stuff. But so it was good. We had a good time. But it was that trip that helped me to inspire. That helped me think about this topic. So then when my wife was napping and I was awake, because there were times when, like, it was funny because one of us would lay down for a nap and the other one would eventually fall asleep, right there next to the person, right? And so when it was her turn to take the nap first, then what I did was I put this idea up on Yahoo, and then our Yahoo people went buck wild crazy over it because everybody seems to be facing this crazy transition in life where they have to start really making adult decisions, and they're dealing with adult emotions, and they're dealing with an idea of who they are and where they fit and all these things that you go through when you're in high school, going into college, trying to find your place. And then especially because most people who go from high school to college have to make a new group of friends because those friends don't often go with you into your into that transition. So but now there are so many things happening. I found out in the 2 days that my best friend's father is passing away, and
oh no,
the doctors gave him a couple weeks to live. And then another friend that I made very recently on a trip that I took when I was away for basically a month in January, his mother has been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer.
Oh no.
And I was looking at the 2 ways that these people deal with the issues, and they both called me, and we're just talking, and then I started thinking about it, and I was like, when you are the oldest or if you're in the oldest part of the demographic of your family, then these things fall to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about just all these things, especially when it comes down to like, as I just got a request from my mother-in-law through my wife for me to handle her final arrangements when that time does come.
What?
Yeah, because she loved how we handled our son's final arrangements when our son passed away. So everybody calls it the Darius special. Can I get the Darius special? Right? Because
That sounds weird.
I know, but it was such a but it was such a uplifting event that it was like, so people were like, that's kind of how I want to go. And I'm thinking me too, but because it was so peaceful, it was so relaxing, it wasn't super over the top dramatic sad, so because that's just not how daddy rolled. So 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 anyway, and I'm starting to think about the fact that even though I'm not the oldest, I am one of the in my generation, from my family, I'm one of the oldest, and I'm one of the most outspoken, proactive people. I'm the one that helps deal with a lot of the things that happen throughout the entire family. And so when these things happen, I'm thinking, okay, I have to be ready because I'm getting older, which means that my parents is getting older, that my that people in my family are getting older, and sooner or later I'm going to have to deal with the idea that they're going to pass away. And if I'm not prepared for these things to take place, then it's going to be so much more harder because it's not only the emotional, but now it's the planning. And if the planning is not taken care of, so me and my auntie were talking about this today, and
I
because
hate this talk.
because nobody wants to have it, like nobody wants to think about losing a parent. But like I told my wife, but as Tyler Perry said, sooner or later it's going to come that time, and you don't need the extra stress on you because it is important, and that you have the emotional space you need to grieve, and then. And I'm thinking about this because my friends are going through it. They're losing their parents. I've already lost my father. I've lost a lot of family. I mean, my first year of marriage, or was it before or during? But anyway, I lost two uncles the year I lost my child, and I'm like, who? I mean, I thought I was going to lose it because these are the people who helped shape me into who I am. So, but when you're the oldest, when you are part of that generation that basically is the next step for your family's evolution, and you're the one that everybody's looking at, you're the one that everybody wants to make decisions, but they always turn to somebody to make the final decision. And in my family, it's usually me and my older brother. And because he's a great planner and I'm a good planner, but he's not sighted, then a lot of the final things come to me, or for me to put together a system that's going to work for everybody. So so I was telling my wife, I said, and it just looks like it's that time again for people to start thinking about realistically who they are and what their responsibilities are. What do you expect is going to happen if you're not prepared, for these things to happen in life? And that's not how the topic came up, but then all these situations came up right after the topic, and then people on on Yahoo and even on Twitter. And thank you guys so much for the Twitter support. It's been sick. Literally, I'm thinking about turning off my notifications on my Twitter. That's how much you guys are tweeting about Innermix right now. And then I think about, I was like, no, I want to appreciate every tweet because these are our people. But you guys are going buck wild crazy on Twitter. And I mean, literally, we wake up in the middle of the night, my wife's like, are they still tweeting? And I was like, yes, they're still tweeting. So I'm going to have to find another notification that doesn't last as long as the one that I currently have. Because it is just so funny, And then when I forget that I haven't plugged up through my Bluetooth speaker system, it's even funnier because then it just echoes throughout the whole house. But it's definitely a little treat. A bit of a treat. But anyway, so the first thing that so what I did was I put together a small list of things that that when we cover this topic, what do you expect? When we talk about this, I put together a short list of things that people should really think about, and then we can ask questions about because and then Twitter, Twitter and Yahoo basically said, well, let's talk about these things because these are the things that are affecting their lives primarily. So the first thing that we're going to address, because death is one of them, and there's no way to avoid death. Matter of fact, this is the thing that we all are moving toward. We're all moving toward death and eternal life. We're moving toward, the loss of the natural body, but the fulfillment of the spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to be so consumed with the planning for the empty shell that I can't do my mourning and rejoicing at the same time. So because of that, and I think about it like this, like for those of you, because I know we have a lot of new fans on the show, and so, and I'm sitting here helping my friends go through the losing of a parent situation right now. And a lot of, like, my wife has never lost a parent. And my father passed away in my arms, literally died in my arms, and now my friends, they're going through losing a parent, and it's a very, it's something that if you have not been through it, it's something that it takes great strength and somebody who has the ability to keep you moving forward, because all you want to do is stand still and not think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then by the time me and my wife started rattling off our parents' ages, we're like, man, like, because you don't think of them as the age they are until you think about it. And then you think about, okay, I could have a good 25 years, with my mom or something like that. But, you start thinking about caretaking and, this,
Yep.
that, and the other and all that kind of stuff. And what are you going to do and all that stuff. And,
I mean, this is the same thing I ask myself. Really, I haven't even really talked about it with a lot of other people because it's if once I start doing, I'm gonna start crying. Like right now, I'm about to start crying because my parents had me. I'm the first child. I have two younger siblings, and they both had me when they were kind of, especially for their time when they were in their 30s. Well, when they were 30, and that's pretty late for that generation. And so right now they're in their 60s, and for the most part, they're pretty healthy and you're running around and doing, working and doing all that stuff. But surely but wait,
slowly
what's
but
this?
surely.
Slowly but surely, the age is catching up, and like the poor diet or lack of exercise and all those things, just working long hours and not being able to sleep well, and all my dad also has sleep apnea, and like he has a crazy snoring because he sometimes can't breathe, like so he'll stop breathing in the middle of the night. It freaks me out, and like you wake him up, he wakes himself up from his snoring. But more so than all that, so I remember because I haven't lived with my parents for a very long time, and so whenever I have the opportunity to be next to them, I take as much advantage of that as possible because I don't know how long it's gonna be until they leave my presence, um, and everything else will stop for me. So like I could put everything else on hold. If my parents are in town, everything else goes on hold because that's how important it is for me. And like when I saw my dad at the airport when I picked him up, I can't believe I'm crying on air. Um, his hair's all white and he seems shorter. Like I'm sure as you get older, your spine, everything kind of starts contracting more and you lose a little bit of height. But he seems so much shorter than what I remember, and so it just broke my heart. Um, and he's leaving this week, and so and then he retires in about 5 years, um, from his church in Korea, and so we're talking about what's gonna happen once he retires, and I'm like, the healthcare system is so much better in Asia. It's like a million times better. It's well organized and they fund everything. It's cheaper and it's more efficient and it's like more advanced. And so on that aspect, and plus he has like friends out there. He knows more people, and he's been there for so long. His whole life is out there right now, but then his kids are here. So what do we do? Like once he retires, does he come here and live with us and take care of our babies, or does he stay in Korea with my, do my parents stay in Korea and get the better benefit of the healthcare if they do get sick? They'll do more for them there, and it'll be less expensive and less of a hassle. So it's like such a toss up, because if they stay here, it's just gonna, they might even go into depression only because they don't know anybody. It's harder for them to get around. It's more spread out as opposed to Korea, which is more condensed. They can walk around, and they have people that they know that they can, have lunch with or dinner with and hang out with, as opposed to here they will be so isolated, So it's a lot of, this is the whole thing that I've been like tormenting myself with and answering, or trying to find an answer that I really can't find an answer to, and trying to prep myself emotionally. As you can see, I'm not doing a very good job.
But I was going to ask you though, y'all have to excuse me, but let me talk to my friend real quick. Why would you even assume that you can go through those kinds of thought processes by yourself and come up with an answer that's not going to break your heart? When I've actually had to make that decision before, because with my mom being gone and everything, what we did as a family, because she needs to be where she can get the best care and everything, but at the same time she needs to also know that her kids can be near her whenever they need to be, and that's what made her comfortable with making the decision to stay where she's at right now, because she can't retire for another 5-6 years either, right? And so what we decided was we have a family fund, where we continuously put money into this fund, where that way if she just needs, like she's coming down to pick up one of her grandkids out from Texas, in the next couple of weeks, right? But anytime we need to get to her, anytime she needs to just hold one of her children, anytime she needs to see one of her grandkids, it can be taken care of, because we make sure that she has what she needs so that she doesn't feel so distant from us. Because other than that, the hardest thing for a parent to do is to not have something to go do, because that's where you get that sense of purpose. But knowing that we've already taken care of that made them say, oh, so you do care about interacting with me, but I don't want your life to stop, for me. That's, but see, that's where I think, we as children, we often think we have to change how we do things because our parents are getting older. But our parents often raise us to continue to be who we are, but aware of the fact that they're getting older and aware that they want to spend time with us and aware of these, these things. So, because my mom, oh my God, like me and my wife were talking about it, how the last time we saw my mom, you can see age is hitting her. You can see it's completely different, and it is a shock when you see the person that always was so youthful and so powerful. Her spirit has not changed. Now, let me get that straight. But you can tell she's getting a little tired. You see what I'm saying? And so when I talk to my brothers, especially, I'm like, we have to put together something so if she needs us for anything, there's no delay in our ability to be able to react to it. And immediately,
my
it was
sisters
just
is slightly only different than the fact that they're halfway around the world.
yeah. No, of course. But that's what I'm saying. But there still has to be a way to make sure that they know that they're not separated from you, even though there's a distance there. Because my mom to me might as well be halfway around the world, because I ain't driving up. I can't react as quickly as I think the quickest person who can react in my family to the needs of my mom or whatever is my little brother, who lives halfway across the U.S. But at least he can jump in, and because he's he's used to driving, so he'll drive as far as he has to go. The reason he moved to where he moved to was so that he'd have equal access to all of his family members if anything comes up, because my brother's in Texas, I'm here, my mother's up north, right? But there's still something, I think, when we told her, don't worry about anything, because we have come up with a plan, so because she had just lost her husband. She had just lost so much, and so there's this, when your parents, like when a parent loses their mate, oh my God, there's something that we took, like when my dad passed, we took care of my mom, but because my mom is so independent, right, we had to come up with a way to take care of her, and because she didn't want to see our lives stop, to make sure that to take care of her, because
Right.
and most parents don't want to see your life stop, They want
No,
to
of
know you
course.
care, but they want you to do what you do because they've lived their life and they want you to enjoy yours. They don't want you to be so sad that you can't move forward. And the hardest thing for us as kids is we get caught up in the, but that's my mom, but that's my dad, And my mom said, but I've done this for my mom. I did this before, and I know what you're going through, But at the same time, because my mom lost her mother while she was delivering my sister.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So in the same hospital. So it's one of those things. She's like, so I understand it, but if you prepare yourself for the things that you can control, the emotional part, which you're not going to be able to control as much, you'll have time for that part, and you will not drop everything and wreck everything you've worked your life to build because you're having a stressed out moment. And because we had to deal with my dad, and all that kind of stuff. So it was, and I've always remembered that. But even my dad used to tell me that he's like, look, I'm not going to always be here. So you need to. So as long as we have a plan for what's going to happen when I'm no longer here, the grief, the sadness, that's going to hit you. But also the joy of knowing that I had a good life and this, that, and the other, that's going to hit you too. So all he said was, be ready, be prepared, so that you don't have to wonder what we're going to do when these things happen. Now you can take time to get better and to heal and rejoice and cry and do those things. And it's the same thing my stepdad said when he knew he was passing, and my mom took care of him till he literally passed away in front of her. So so there's all these things, but it's hitting so many people, and everybody's making these big decisions. And it touched my heart that people that I just met earlier this year called me and said, what do I do? The doctor says I've had this much time left with my mom. What do I do? The first thing I said was, do you already have arrangements made? They said, yes, it's all taken care of. Then I said, then you enjoy your time. You live your life, but you make sure that you enjoy the time you have with your mom. So that way you don't have any regrets. You don't have any of those other things that
Exactly.
tend to hit people. But when you do that, because his mom keeps telling him, I love spending time with you, but you still have a life. And so he said, so then what I'm going to do then is, like, so him and his siblings, I love this, him and his siblings, all they did was they said, okay, we'll each stay a night with her twice a week. And then we'll have a caretaker come in on the seventh night. So, and then, which I like, wow, that is just so much love. But the mom is like, I love spending time with you, baby, but you still have a life to live. And although I love spending, so you can't stop your life from my life coming to an end. What you can do, though, is you can show me how much you've learned from me by doing the things that you should be doing. And then when we spend time together, you can catch me up on what's happening in your life. So we're gonna see each other twice a week anyway. So they just sleep over there and they spend time, dinner, lunch, whatever, And I said that sounds like how my auntie would handle it, how my mom might handle it, depending. So it's just one of those things. But the strength and the because the last thing that I found when I talked to my mom about these things, and when I talked to my auntie about these things, the last thing that they want to see is someone who is unsure. Because if they know that their time is coming their time is coming, they're going to be with Jesus, so they're sure they're going to be happy. What they want to know is that you're sure that they want to know that you're sure that you're going to make it when they're gone. That's what they really want, and that's what I want for my kids. I want to know that they're going to be sure that when I'm no longer here, they're going to still hear my voice. They're going to still hear me laughing. And now we have YouTube and all these videos, so they're going to see me laughing. But same way, shape, form, or fashion. But they're going to be able to make it, because that's the real thing. But it's a very hard thing. It's very hard. My friends, who, like the friend who's going through with his dad passing away right now, he was there when my dad passed away. He waited with me while in the room while they were trying to figure out if he was going to make it or not. My friend rode a bike uphill with me, and it was like a 2-mile ride, and this was not no little hill. It was on the day of my surprise party for my birthday. It was just all these things just happening. But so we kind of know what it is to get in and be there for somebody when they're going through these kinds of things. But one thing I learned a long time ago is these are not the things that, like, we always think that because we're older and we're the oldest, people are going to be looking to us for this, for what to do. But thank God he always put people who were older than me in my life who had already been through some of these things. Like my business partner, Charles. When I lost my son, I couldn't think. But Charles said, you don't have to think. Just tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. You know, when things were happening with my dad, I had Charles, you know, who had been through, because his dad committed suicide, and he had been through all these things. You know, so just a lot of, it's just so much stuff. But God will always put somebody with the experience to help you get through, but you have to be able to take advantage of that experience, or you're going to literally lose yourself in grief. And I've seen it happen. And then we had to go knock down a door and drag somebody out, so so that they could get back to living. And you know, so it's a very hard thing, but it is something that has to be done. So that's why I ask myself, what do I expect? What do I expect from me when this inevitable day comes? What do I expect? And if I expect to be able to make sure that everything's taken care of in as smooth a fashion as possible, that means that I have a job to do in terms of preparing for this thing, because you cannot prepare yourself for the emotion that happens, but you can prepare yourself for the things that have to take place. You know, so I believe in being well, anybody who knows how I do business, I believe in being prepared. And right now, because of the roles that I'm taking on in my life, I have so little. What's a good way to say it? I I have so little time for the I wish I could, but I you know, or not even the wish I could. The people who say they want to do, but they have no real drive to get it done, and so easily detoured because of situations and circumstances. Situations and circumstances are never going to go away, so they're always there. So if you really want to do something, then you're going to do it. If excuses and things come to knock you off course, then it was going to happen anyway. So to set your mind to something and accomplish it no matter what, that's what it is to really have a desire, a dream, a focus, and ambition. Everything else is a wish, dream, hope. You know, it's not even a dream. Really, it's just a hope. One day I wish. You know, that's what it is. So, I heard Amber, then I heard Tanisha. So, Tanish. It's like a dish. You know, Tanisha said that she didn't expect this conversation to go the way it's going, but she's glad it did, because she's facing the same issue right now in her family with deciding what they're going to do with her mom, who is right now 72 years old. So they have a family meeting coming up to discuss how to deal with this day when it inevitably comes. Not that she's been given a death sentence, but they know that they need to be prepared. And it's hard. It's a hard thing, but depending on the family you have, it'll become that much easier. Because with my aunt, for instance, everything's already written up. She's like, look, it's in this drawer. But she plans the whole family's wills, and she does all that stuff. She's like, no, I don't need you to think about nothing. I've already taken care of it. You ain't got to think, just got to do. Don't think, just do. Right? That's her thing. She's like, because I'm already with Jesus, so whatever you do with all this, I know it's sexy, but it's gone. It's gone. You know, type thing. Right? So she would have a party while putting together a final arrangement, because she's like, it's a celebration. Why is it so sad and depressed? No, get it together. You know. So where my mom, I don't think she wants to think about that aspect of things, especially while she's single. I think when she's, you know, when she was married, then I think it was a little easier for her, because these are things husbands and wives talk about. You know, and then my mom is always trying to keep the pressure off the kids, but at the same time, we're adults. And I think she's starting to realize that. So we gotta know so we can do what needs to be done. Anybody who knows me, you know, or has talked to me about that kind of thing, because there have been several times when I have literally been diagnosed to not make it through the night. You know, I have sleep apnea. I have all these other things that have hit me. I've had cancer and all these things, and people have always told me, you know what, you may not make it past this point. You may not make. You know, I had a life-threatening scare about a year ago, something like that. I don't know, but it was like where they're just not sure. There have been times when they said they weren't sure. So I've talked to my wife about, you know, what I want. And I've talked, you know, because I'm very open about, look, yeah, my wife said Darius special. But, you know, I'm like, look, since my wife refuses to let me parachute out of an airplane because then my eye pressure is no longer a concern, then, so she's like, I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think people want to see you falling from the sky. I was like, we can save money on a parachute. But she doesn't think it's fun. So I'm just gonna be cremated, and spread it. See, I don't want nobody going to a tombstone looking for me. That's just not gonna happen. Because I'm with the Lord. I finally got to cash in my train ticket. I'm on my train to glory. I don't need. I don't need nobody looking for no tombstone to find me. But that's just my thing. Where, but I've been so aware of my mortality that I've never been afraid to say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. And all I got to do is stay under 300 pounds to qualify. I think I can do that. Because if you're over 300 pounds, you can't be cremated. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Nah, you got to go to a special cremation thing, and it costs a whole heck of a lot of money.
You don't fit in the oven?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, it was such a weird fact. Like, we were in the middle of discussing the final. We were in the middle of discussing the final arrangements for Darius and all that, right? Which is our first child, by the way, for you who don't know. So we were in the middle of discussing the final arrangements for our first child, and me and Charles are, which is me and Jules' other business partner. Where we were going through, and they were telling us about all these different things, and one thing they said, and I was like, huh. So me and Charles were really starting to shop for final arrangements, because the guy we got was so good. He made us crack up. He said, we hear, well, we do cremation, and he was so sensitive, but yet you could tell he had a sense of humor, and he was like, well. And I said, well, how big am I allowed to get before I can be, before I can no longer be cremated? He said 300 pounds. He said, now, if you're 300 pounds, but you look like you are 250, you're good. That's just all muscle. We can burn muscle. We can do that. He said, but but if you look like, if you're 300 pounds and you look like 400 pounds, we can't get you in, right? And I just couldn't help but crack up. I said, well, now I know my weight limit. I can't get above 300, right? So, but yeah, they can't fit you in. So, or they have to ship you to a place where they can do it, but it costs a lot of money because it's like, I don't remember if there's a place in California that can even do that size person. So, because remember, even if you're over a certain size, you have to buy 2 burial plots. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, girl.
I mean, what coffin would?
They have big people coffins, but
big people coffins.
They do. They're double. This is not a joke. One guy said, well, we have the single, we have the double wide, and for some, we've actually had triple wide coffins before. But they had the plots that had, think about, people who weigh 500 some odd.
Oh no, yeah, I remember. I watched What's Eating Gilbert Grape the other day. And that's basically. The mom, she basically was making the house fall down because she was sitting in the same place
for the whole time
every day, not moving, and like the foundation was cracking. Right.
Yeah. So, this is one of the things that that we really want to think about is what do you expect from yourself when you're going through traumatic times, and because if you don't have an expectation, then you're liable just to go any direction. And if you can't depend on yourself, then how will others depend on you? And if you don't, and then one thing I've learned is if you don't allow yourself to go through so that you can get through, then you're not going to be able to help anybody else make it through. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to be able to. One of the things that so that was that one. So let's look at something else so that y'all don't spend the whole show crying and thinking about losing because but. So here's one that's completely different, by the way, you guys. But when I was on my trip, now I've talked about this, I've joked about this, but I started to get irritated on my trip because I use blind tools to get around. But if I don't wear sunglasses to indicate that blindness, people do not treat me as blind. I mean, I am clearly visually impaired with some of the devices that I use to get around the things that I do. Clearly, there is no guessing about it, nothing, right? But people they have an expectation because somebody, and I hear this phrase all the time, and and it used to be like, oh, whatever. My friends used to say it to me all the time, sometimes still do. You don't act blind. So so I told my wife about the conversation I had where all my friends got together because they were all trying to figure out the best way to interact with me, the best way to help me with certain things, the best way because because very few people actually ask me, will this be better for you? Because they just assume that my experience in life is like their experience because I've adapted. Not that I can do it the way they do, but I've adapted so that the way I do it works best for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so this one person, they saw me working with my visual aid equipment, and they said, you just don't look blind. Maybe and I said, what does that mean? What exactly? Because I used to ask my friends, and I said, okay, let me just since we're all in this session and we're all talking about it, what do you expect my behavior is going to be because I'm blind? Because no one ever says it. They just say you don't act blind. So the first thing I asked my friends was, well, what does that exactly mean? How am I supposed to act blind? What does that mean to you? And nobody could really define it, right? Then I said, well, how many blind people do you know? Right? They're like, well, just you and your brother. Okay. But y'all don't act blind. Okay. So, again, what is a blind person supposed to act like? After a while, people have already determined what my behavior should be based on my disability. So they are, so they negate the disability altogether. They basically say, well, you don't act blind, so we don't think of you as blind, blah blah. But so I'm like, okay, so unless I hurt myself, walk with sunglasses on, or walk, swing my hair from side to side, or do all the stuff y'all saw on Stevie Wonder, then I don't classify as blind as needing the extra help, needing somebody to do these. It doesn't register. So and I said that is very irritating. And I said, especially for people who actually know that I have visual issues. Not so you expect that that I should, well, basically your expectation of what a blind person's behavior should be this, and if I don't fit that, then I no longer qualify for the consideration that you have for those who don't exhibit, for those who do exhibit those behaviors. And so
I wonder if it's that calculated, or if it's that
I'm sure it's very unconscious. Yeah,
because sometimes if it's not like a reminder is there, then you kind of forget.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have habits or you exhibit mannerisms and life situations and such that people with vision do, then it just kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like driving.
Yeah, right. Well, you don't do that. But like if, like you're walking by yourself without a cane or like without any, because if you're just walking down the street and then somebody would see you, nobody would necessarily think, oh, he is visually impaired, because you're perfectly capable of walking by yourself without any, a lot of the times, not all the time, because sometimes you have, you lose your sight completely, and I totally, I know that stuff, but I know that stuff. But if somebody who didn't know that, and then they just see you walking down the street without a cane or without anything, nobody would actually necessarily think that you're blind.
Well, that's why the irritation comes with those who actually know, and still, like me and my wife were talking about this because I have my good friend Randy, right? He I've known him since I was 12, and he's the only person I can say who's actually been like, I understand your sight even though I don't understand it, but I also understand when you need my help. And it's not because you told me, but because I paid attention to how you interact. I can tell when you've lost your sight. I can tell when like when something comes up on a screen for like a movie and the text comes up, he automatically starts reading it to me. He doesn't ask me if I need it read to me. He actually pays attention.
Mhm.
and it has never changed over the years. It's always been he just jumps right into it, even if we've been separated for 5, 6 years. He just jumps right back into it. Um, and if I'm, so I don't feel disabled when I'm around him. Because I don't feel like if we're walking through a crowd, then he actually pays attention to where I'm at in relation to where he is, so he can tell if I'm having difficulty following him or if I'm looking at something else or what. But he's very aware. Um, Whereas now I'm finding more and more that people are not aware anymore. They're so focused on their objective that they've forgotten about people around them in general. First off, but they've definitely forgotten about me. So I had to adapt a new skill to be able to track, follow, and the people, because after a while I got tired of saying wait up, da da da, because the awareness is no longer there. It's just like, whatever, like they're so focused. But we're in such a visual. Everybody's so stimulated nowadays that it's not natural to be aware of the things going on around you as much as it used to be. So with Randy, so I was telling my wife about this, and she said, "Well, now I feel bad." So I was like, "Why?" I'm just telling you about how it used to be. And she said, "Because she's still learning those things. She's still picking up on those things because I do have behaviors that are not, conducive to what people have determined blind is." But at the school I went to when I was young, a lot of blind kids didn't need canes because they were so adept with their ears. They they'd walk like I walk, without, except they're totally blind and they were doing it better than me. I was still hitting them. I was still running into stuff. You see what I'm saying? My brother walks with or without a cane. Don't make him any difference. He uses the cane so it tells you he's blind. But once he's familiar with the location, he don't need it. He jaywalks, carries his stuff like we going. No. 2 steps this way now. It's just automatic for him. I went and hung out with a bunch of a community of blind people in January, and most of them don't need their canes. They just have it for. They said like we were sitting around talking about this, and just because I was like, they were asking me how long I've had my cane. I said I had to get it recently because I got tired of. I really just got irritated with people not. When I tell you I'm visually impaired or whatever, it, blah blah. But I need the cane to remind you, as opposed to it mattering that I actually said it, type thing. And then and it's just I said, so a lot of times people will carry the cane. Yeah, when they're in new places, they need the extra security, but a lot of time it's also because it's to remind the sighted that they're blind, because nobody remembers, nobody thinks about it like that. So, but the reason why a lot of blind people don't carry their canes is because it also turns you into a target. So a lot of us develop the skills to move without our cane so that we would not be considered a target. That's how come a lot of blind people, like there's a device that a lot of blind people have that they use in their ears, so it looks like they're listening to music, but really it's giving them an audible cue of what's going on in the world around them. It's like a sonic cane. Because
Oh, interesting.
they don't get hit as much, they don't get pushed into the street as much, they don't get tricked as much, they don't get they don't become victims as much because they just wear shades, they walk with their head up. But the one thing, if you want to know if somebody's but the blind people, they don't turn their head left or right, they don't need to, they're not trying to use the peripheral vision to see what's going on. So there's just a lot of stuff. But so my thing wasn't about people not understanding, because I understand that it's a very small segment of the overall demographic. My thing is the expectation. Like, if someone shows you that they can actually do more, but they still have the disability, then my thing is, well, when people say you don't act blind, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means and what I'm supposed to fit into to qualify for the consideration. Because it, like, I literally know people who walk with seeing eye dogs, and people still say, well, because you wear glasses, you're not considered blind.
Oh, really?
Oh yes, I've witnessed it firsthand, and so it's just one of those things where, so I got to the point to where I'm like, maybe so that I don't get irritated, I should just walk around with shades on all the time. So that way, when they see because when I have shades on, people pay more attention to my body language, and they recognize that I have an issue seeing things. But if I walk around with my glasses on, they don't care about my body language. They don't care about anything. but the body language has not changed. It's just the glasses have changed. And
That's bizarre.
I find that very interesting. But no, but me and my friends, I mean, Jules, I'm telling you, like we've looked at it ourselves because everybody because it's not like it's a secret that I can't see, but we've looked at our own like my friends say, you know what, you're right, because when you are in, like when you're wearing your shades and stuff and whatever, it's a reminder that you can't see. It's a reminder because then we watch your body language because we can't see your eyes. So we're looking at something else to tell us, what you're looking at, what you're, how you're interacting with the world, because your eyes are not telling us. So I said that's so interesting to me, but yeah, well, we've had several discussions about that. That's why I love my group of friends, because we'll just bring it all out. Just like I'll talk to the girls sometimes about, I think it's time that you retire the opening button on your legs, and they're like, really, why? I think we need the Velcro.
I just had an epiphany. Sorry to interrupt you on that. I think because with sighted, when you were saying how you okay, hold on, let me regroup. Okay, so you were saying when people don't wait, what? Okay, I have my thought. Okay, so people they forget, right? And you get very upset, like with your friend Randy. He's known you since you guys were 12. He's known that you were blind since you were 12. I think it's two-part. Part one, when you're younger and you are more exposed to different things, you adapt faster when you're younger than as when you're older. That's one. That's for true. That's the truth. It's hard to teach old. That saying, hard to teach old dogs new tricks. And
right.
when you have somebody who's 10 years old as opposed to somebody who's 30 years old, teaching them the same thing, or it's putting them in different environments, it's a lot harder for the 30-year-old to adjust as opposed to the 10-year-old who will adapt faster to the situation and will learn faster. And then, so that's part one. Part two, with visual people, it's very visual. So we rely on our sight so much more than we realize that we need our sight to remind ourselves of other things. So if we don't see it, then it's not there. As opposed to people who don't have sight, they rely on memory, they rely on what they hear, they rely on the environment a lot and their surrounding a lot more, I think, than people who see and can pick up visual cues or pick up reminders from what they see, as opposed to relying more on their memory.
Right. No, I definitely understand. I can definitely see that, in terms of, that's how come, if you notice, it's more of the, like the big thing going on in the blind community right now is we have to adjust to fit sighted expectations because the sighted are not trying to adjust to understand the blind, because it's too much work. So it's easier to teach a blind person how to interact with the sighted community than it is to teach the sighted community about the blind. Even right down to just different things that used to be obvious signs of blindness are no longer. Like, we were talking to somebody who has a seeing eye dog, and they were like, but people don't recognize that the seeing eye dog is to guide the blind. They think it's just a fancy leash on the dog.
Oh.
Because it's no longer exposed, because people have harnesses that are really leashes. So now, if you walk around and you have a seeing eye dog, you are more often than not, people are going to ask you, well, what's the harness for? And then if you're wearing glasses,
don't they usually have like a thing that says seeing eye dog or dog at work or something?
Not unless you want to put one on there, but it used to be standard that if you see a dog in a harness and somebody's holding onto the harness, that harness is that dog is guiding the person. So and so that was the universal sign for guide dog. Now, I found out that internationally it's still that way, but in the U.S. people don't care because everybody wants to have a cute dog, right? And they want to so because of it, now they so nobody knows. It's more often than not that people don't know that the harness is to indicate the guide dog. aspect of it. So, and then I was talking to somebody recently, and I think it was like a waitress or something. They said, "Oh, that's just too hard to remember. They should probably just put a smock on the dog."
A what?
A smock, the little colorful smock that
Oh my God.
because all the other dogs have color, because each color represents something, but there is no color for a seeing eye dog because the harness represents. Because none of the other ones require that the dog lead anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just a very interesting thing. So the thing I was reading today was basically people are getting upset because just a lot of things are happening in the blind community. But one of the things is like, so there's no adaptation for, so the sighted are not trying to get to know and understand the needs and how the blind operate, and that they're just like they're different different levels of sighted people. Some are very aware visually, some are very aware in, when it comes down to body language or eyes or whatever. All the blind have been lumped into one category. And so they don't understand that this blind person may not be as independent as this blind person over here is, who's actually, the head of a major major company and doing their day-to-day operations or whatever, blah, blah. It's always linked to the same thing. So that's why people are always impressed when they see a blind person who doesn't do the things that they expect a blind person should do. So I'm like, well, what is the expectation? What do you expect? Like, would it be easier if I do these things? Like me and my wife even ran it when we were on vacation. I if I reach out and open a door, but I say that I'm blind, then they're upset that I could actually see the door handle to open the door. So people were like, "Oh, you say you're blind." But if I let somebody else open the door, then I use the back of my hand to hold the door open as I walk forward so that I know where the end of the door is. Then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you do have an eye problem." Right? So I'm like, ain't this some mess? Because that means that I'm not allowed to, it's wrong for me to have certain abilities and still have the handicap. It's just really weird to me. So,
well, I don't think it's necessarily that it's wrong.
No, not wrong.
I don't think that's what people are saying. Yeah.
It's just the expectation is not there for me to be able to do those things. But you'd be surprised how bold people are now, because I had people telling me on my vacation how my life should be. You know what I'm saying? And I said, this is kind of crazy.
Well, that's what, people say all the time, not just to black people, but to everybody.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
life should be like this. You need to date somebody like this. You need to marry this. You need to be like this. You need to look like this. And that's just, that's how life is nowadays.
Oh, yeah. People are all up in your, but I recognize that people have personal boundary issues now because they don't have them anymore.
Yep.
So when I was talking to people on Yahoo, when we were talking on Twitter, basically the issue. So there were three main things. One, I loved how the people on Twitter really spent a lot of time trying to explain to me what's expected and what the rundown is on what's expected from a blind person and how and it was funny how it varied internationally versus the U.S., right? Mm-hmm. So that was very interesting. And then and so every time somebody gave me a suggestion to see if people would treat it differently, I ran with the suggestion just to see how it would go. And it was great experimentation time, and my wife really enjoyed it too. Because these things were new to her. And some woman was so disrespectful when she was talking to me that my wife got so mad she started crying because she was just very, very disrespectful, right? And I had, like I told y'all last week, I had to make a decision on how I was going to deal with that situation, and I chose to be the bigger man about it, but not by much. So barely made it through that one.
I wish I were there.
No, because then I would have been like, no, we don't react this way because people think they right. I'd be like, somebody get Jules. Somebody get Jules.
It's okay. I can react. I'm expected to react. So there you
go. Oh man. But so I'm always looking at what is the expectation? What do you expect from the different demographics you're exposed to, and what do you expect from yourself in the way that they talk to you about what your life should be? Because I had to ask myself these questions because for the last couple of weeks I've been getting hit, just left, right, and center with all these different emotional ups and downs and things that have been, coming at me, whether it's family, friends, disappointments, and and I told my wife yesterday, because I have no issue saying things on the air, but I told my wife yesterday that that I think more so than anything else over the last 4 to 5 weeks, I've been more disappointed than anything else, and and um and I realized that it just started to hit me, and my fuse was getting shorter and shorter. But every time that my fuse started to get to the point to where I was getting ready to talk outside the left side of my head, I said I had to rebuild. I had to come back up, because I'm not going to allow disappointment to cause me to act outside of who I am. I'm not going to allow the things that people say to cause me to be anything other than who I really am. And it's not just who I am, but who I am in God that really matters to me.
Right.
And so because who I am ain't good enough without being attached to who I am in God. Because who I am, Jules and her dad would have been driving down to get me out of jail while my wife. So yeah. So but then now, outside of all of the this, that, and the other, people are always going to tell you what they expect from you. They're going to tell you what they think your life should be, and some of those.
Yeah. I get that all day, every day. Like, I don't know this is we have a lot of new viewers and stuff, so I probably haven't shared this with you guys, but when I went to Korea one time to visit my parents and my family, I got a whole physical. This was like 5 years ago, something like that. All my siblings, we all got physicals. And for those of you who don't know, I'm the oldest of 3. I have a younger sister and then a younger brother. And I've always been on the more bigger side. I have curly hair. I apparently don't look Asian or look Korean. So they don't expect me to be Korean or whatever that means. And I also don't act like a Korean girl should act. I don't laugh like a Korean girl should laugh. I don't talk like one. I don't look like one. I don't sing like one, etc., etc. And anyway, so I went at this clinic, or the hospital that I went to get the physical done. They also said that I was obese. So as was my brother. We were both
not by American standards. I gotta let y'all know.
Not by American standards. By American standards, I'm perfectly healthy. In Korea, I'm obese, and so I needed to go to a fat clinic and get certain things done, and like these weird exercising things, and none of it worked. But and then the doctor basically told me, because my sister has always been a twig. She's tiny. Even right now when she's pregnant, she's tiny. She looks like an alien. It's the weirdest thing, because she's small everywhere. She doesn't look pregnant. You wouldn't expect her to be pregnant until you see her stomach. Yeah, and then she has this huge belly. So weird looking, but it's so cute. Anyway, so my sister, ever since she was born, always skinny. She could eat like a horse, eat literally 5 times as much as I do. Doesn't really exercise, doesn't do anything. She's healthy, but she's tiny and skinny and never gains weight. Me, I would eat tiny morsels, work out 10,000 hours a day if I want, if I could, and I would still gain water weight. I could drink water and gain weight. So the doctor would basically told me, you have the body type that you have to eat half as much as normal people do and work out twice as much as normal people do to maintain the same weight. I was pissed. I cried because I was so mad. So I'm expected to eat less and work out more than what an average person would do so that I can be at the Korean standard of beauty. That pissed me off. And then I also have other friends. I also have beautiful friends who are actual actresses here in America, and they actually, I guess, audition for a part or something, for movie roles or TV shows. I forget exactly, but basically they auditioned for something for Korea, and they told her, she's gorgeous. They told her she needed to get plastic surgery done to her face. She said, hell no, and she left. But that's the kind, when there are certain things, I love my motherland, My parents are there. I love a lot of things about it, the traditions and culture and all of that. But I do have to say there are certain things, a lot of certain things, that really irritate the crap out of me when it comes to some of the stereotypical things or the visual part aspect, beauty aspect of it that they are so caught up on that is impossible. Impossible. And it's actually here too. It's impossible to uphold.
Hmm.
A lot of it is photoshopped. Here they Photoshop. In Korea they actually Photoshop your face with knives. In real life. It's
She
kind
said
of crazy,
Photoshop
but
my face. Okay.
yeah. And that kind of expectations to look perfect and flawless is something that is put upon all of us, women, anywhere you go actually, but in America too, definitely, in Korea for sure. If you don't look, you don't have the double eyelid, if you don't look this way, if you have too big of a face, if you have, if you're not a size -2, like it's all considered you're not pretty, you're not beautiful, you're not worth it. And that absolutely, with no doubt, pisses me off, and I don't agree with it at all. So, and I love the Dove campaign that started a few years ago here, about beauty in every size, and I believe that. I believe in healthiness. I don't think that you should be 500 pounds. Um, I mean, if you can help it, there are certain diseases that will cause that to happen. But if you can help it, if you with proper diet and proper exercise, that you are healthy, that you don't have, you don't, because of the overweight issue, that you will have health problems. As long as that doesn't happen, beauty is in every size. I agree with that, but apparently not so in many other countries. So whatever. But
Well, the one of the things that I look at when it, like like we had, like, somebody was asking me if I would, like, when I was starting my dating career. it wasn't
career.
it wasn't a very long career. That's what I was reading right now. It's like, I love that term, dating career. That means that you plan on dating for a long, long time. But when I started dating, if if the person's appearance played that big of a part in my choosing to go out with that person, and I said, to be, and I was thinking about it because, like, to be honest, there are certain things that even I look for, and I say even I because, I'm not going to be able to point out every pimple on your face and all that kind of stuff and say, ooh, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. But what I do though is I like a because I know that people change over time. See, most people seem to forget that, right? So there are certain things that I know that no matter what goes out of whack, some of these things are going to stay pretty much the way they are. I love. For me, I'm a leg person. I like strong legs.
Legs
And
and hair is what he's
legs and
about.
yep, legs and hair. I love legs and hair, and that's always been. Now, my mom said when I was younger I was more of a boob man, but if you look at my dating history, that has changed. So but she said I used to walk up to everybody, just grab their boob.
Oh
I was
my
like, really? Why did that change? But anyway, so but yeah, so I must have been an adorable little man because
side boob. Side boob.
exactly. So so when thinking about what people expect from your life, it's a very interesting thing. But one of the key areas in the last part of this show that we're going to go into is um, people have different expectations of themselves and the things they choose to do, right? And I was watching a interview because I was trying to figure out a person that everybody here primarily would be able to relate to because the name is big enough for you to actually go and look it up for yourself, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, you know, you guys are always so tight, this, that, and the other, so you guys are going to agree with whatever each other say anyway, so blah, blah, right? and
Not
uh,
always true.
no, it's not always true at all. But but y'all just don't know because y'all ain't with it. So,
Pay
so,
attention.
and I'm and I realized, well, two things. One, I was watching this interview with 50 Cent last night, and he was talking about what it takes to make to move in confidence, to move forward no matter what the obstacle, because he's had to fight with major record labels. He's had to, to maintain who he is and to do things the way he wants to do it. He's had to let go of all of his good close friends, not because of anything other than the fact that they wanted to ride on his coattail, ride on his ambition, ride on his success, as opposed to building their own drive. So his thing was, if I leave the game, if I do something totally different, their whole situation is over, because they're not driven to do it without me. They want to claim all the, the things that happened, but their whole career was built on my life story. And it's true. G-Unit, the whole G-Unit movement was based on 50 being who he is. Mm-hmm. And then all the things they did was based on that. But that's how a lot of people's situations get started in entertainment, especially in music. Like Jay-Z, people built their thing, his whole camp was built around his particular life story, and then they got a chance to tell their own story. But Kanye is the best example of him getting his deal based on, and him going forward based on his story. Then somehow he lost his mind and he became who he is now. But but if you listen to Through the Wire, that's his story. If you listen to the first album, that's his story. The first two albums, I think, those are him. College Dropout, the College Dropout series, that's him. Somewhere along the line, when he lost his mama, he lost his center, and you can understand how that can happen to anybody. But he lost his center, and he went on his own way. Well, 50 was talking about, he's like, he said, my life story has provided them with the opportunity to do anything they wanted in life, and what they wanted to do was act like my life story was their story, and because of that, they're now losing everything, because I've said I have to make changes to the company, because we no longer have Interscope giving us all this money. Mm-hmm. So when he said, so even when the recession hit and all the labels started firing the higher end people, they're moving up their assistants who knew how to do their jobs and paying them twice what they used to get, but half of what the others were getting for the job. He said, at my company, at G-Unit, nobody took a pay cut. There was no pay cut. We didn't feel the recession. At G-Unit. He said, but now that we are an independent record label, we do things ourselves, and I have to make adjustments for the survival of our company. He said, because it's not affecting my money, because I get money in so many different areas. He said, but for the company of G-Unit, he said, I have to restructure. Now, he said, they're like, well, why? How come you're not releasing my stuff? Well, have you been working on your product while I was working on mine? Have you been improving yourself in this place that you want to be while I was doing mine? Well, and his thing was, he said they expected that I was going to do something, and then because I was doing it, they were going to get to do it too. He said, as opposed to them saying, I've been working on my craft, I've been diligently seeking after improving myself. He said, because that way, if they had gotten just 50% better in the time, because I haven't released an album in 4 years. He said, if they had just been working on touring, doing something to show that they're working to improve themselves over that period of time, he said, even if they weren't up to my standard of what I think excellence is, it would have been better than what they used to be, so it would have been worth the investment. And I was like, that's some real talk. As thuggish as he is, he's not a dumb businessman. You see what I'm saying? Like, So he's like, in today's media, you cannot rest on old media standards. You can't. You can't say, okay, I want to book this, plan it. I want to do this 6 months from now. I want to do this, blah blah. When you have your 6-month plan, that means you have to have your next month plan on how you're going to get to 6 months. Your 6-month plan. So he said, so I'm not caring if my songs hit and make major money. I need my songs to be in the marketplace. So he was releasing a song every week with a video attached to it for 13 weeks, right? He said, because he said that way you don't get addicted to one song. You just want the whole thing. He said, I learned it when I was drug dealing. He said, now you're addicted to the brand. He said, so you're not just going anywhere to get what you need. You're coming to me. You see what I'm saying? And I say, well,
I can't believe he said that on air.
He did. It was just a great interview, but because it's not a secret. You see what I'm saying? So, but it was a great interview. Sometimes you wonder, how many times somebody could say, you know what I mean, in a conversation. But,
not me. Yeah.
Yeah, but and sometimes he mumbles, but he got shot in the jaw, so he's gonna mumble a
Hmm.
bit. But the thing about it was he was talking about what their expectations were versus his expectations. He said he doesn't expect as a leader that he's going to let things in life cause him to lose focus on what he should be focused on. Right. And he said, how are you going to be a leader and you don't even have you're not even working to improve yourself? You're waiting for somebody else to tell you it's time for you to do the next thing, and you're wait. He said no. He said he might put in a 20-hour day, and as tired as he is, he still has to study what's available to him to utilize to improve himself. And um and then at the end of the interview, I said, dang, I done got lax. I done relaxed a bit. I don't like that. Because but this is why, because I was sitting back analyzing it, and I said, and maybe it's because I just have this fire in my belly right now. I don't know. And maybe it's because I lost 11 years worth of content and I didn't realize how much it annoyed me and really hurt me until, because I remember the day when I started the first company. And I remember the fire that was in me when I started the first company. And then I remembered how that company became so widely known so quickly without us even having a budget, that we had to open another company to put the artists in because people were trying to come to us from different countries, and we didn't even have a lawyer who was able to help us in different countries yet. We were on fire. This is before the internet took off and did what it was doing now. It was before all that. We had major labels helping us, and we were nobodies on their radar, but people were still helping us because we had a fire, not an entitlement, but a fire to make a difference, right? And I remember that I expected to make a change. I expected to make a difference. I mean, I expected myself to put the work in that was going to be necessary to get us to where we needed to be, right? And then I said, so the first company, we had artists that were on the Billboard charts. We had artists that were doing just incredible things. But I have a very strong work ethic, and then because we were talking about this on Yahoo as well, and they said, well, yeah, but single people, they don't have families, they don't have responsibilities, they don't have jobs. I said that was not an excuse for our people, because our number one artist at the time, he had 4 kids, and he had a job, and he had a wife, and he had to keep everybody happy, but he was still building, but he also had sponsors. He was also all over Vegas. He was also, and we didn't have internet, so he was also slinging CDs at the gas station to make sure that people knew who he was, at least in his own town. Now the equivalent of that hustle is people are on YouTube making sure that you at least know that they do something, right? So that they don't fall to the wayside. You got actors, actresses, you got musicians, of course. You've got people who write comedy sketches. You got these people. They're all making sure that they don't fall out of view of people, even if they're only putting something up once every 3 weeks. They're trying to say, I'm relevant. And these people are starting to, build their brand. So I'm looking at all this, and I'm like, well, that is today's hustle, right? But when so we started getting hit up with all these different artists asking questions, like, as a manager, as managers, what do you expect from artists? I expect, so we got asked a couple of different things. One, the people on Yahoo is asking, as management, how would you evaluate where Innermix is right now? What do you expect from each other as individuals, and what do you expect as a unit for your movement as Innermix? And then ultimately, everybody wanted to know, what does management slash business person expect from future employees, and what should an entrepreneur expect from themselves? But these are all the questions that you guys primarily wanted to know, okay? Because there seems to be a lapse in everybody's putting so much stuff out about what it takes to be successful that nobody's giving any basics. Because everybody's like, and you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this, right? First off, the first thing I want to tell, because I was talking to my wife again the other day. We had some great conversations on our trip. I do have to say that. I gotta say that. I told her I need to do English class because I've been so on fire lately. But here's the thing. The first thing that you have to know in order to work with somebody like me, in order to make it past where you are right now in entertainment, that in order to escalate and move to the next level or do whatever you think the next level is for you, is if it's something that you don't like, too bad. You know, like if you like when I used to talk to my artists, I think like honestly, even though Jules worked the hardest as one of my artists, she didn't endure the abuse or the straight talk that a lot of the other artists got, because they're like, oh, I don't want to do that song, too bad. And then when I said too bad, I'm like, because it's a good song, you just don't think it's gonna make you look good to your homies, but your homies ain't even trying to buy nothing from you. They're not trying, you know. So who cares what they think? What I care about is who you are and what you can deliver. I'm not asking you to be something you're not. You just don't want to show people this side, but this is the side of you that most people want to know. So get over it. Too bad. Next thing you know, I'm hearing this stuff on the radio. you know, and they're like, oh, this was hot. This is tight. Yeah, it was. You just were too busy trying to fit into what you thought the people around you expected from you, as opposed to what you could teach people to expect from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I said, because in the beginning, and now this is just as management, I felt like I'm an artist. I have crazy drive, okay? And I didn't even start my company, any of them, until I was married, which is already another level of pressure, okay? But I already knew what I wanted to do when I was in college, so I never stopped working toward that thing. Even when I took time off and didn't sign that label deal or whatever, tell you guys a story later, some other time. But when I didn't sign that deal, it never kept me out of the studio. It never kept me from doing other things, even though I was still with my wife, having babies. Well, I didn't have a baby, but you know. It never stopped my momentum. It actually increased my drive. It actually made me have to think of ways to. I had to be really innovative, because my time was getting pulled in different directions, you know. So I had to be more aware of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to get it done, and then find a way to accomplish it. Now, if you're an artist, like if you're an artist trying to go after a major label deal, for instance, a label's job is not to build you. It is no longer to create you and make you popular. It's for them to capitalize on what you've already done for yourself. So if you're not doing for yourself, then they don't have a reason to do anything for you. If you don't know what a 360 deal is, then you're not going to even ask what a carve-out deal of a 360 deal is. And most of the time, people aren't even going to tell you. They're just going to say, hey, you want a deal? It's going to be 360, which means they take most of your money, no matter how it comes, whether through merchandise or sales or ringtones or whatever your name is on, they get a piece of that, right? As opposed to a carve-out deal that basically states that you get to keep all of your merchandise, and you get to keep all of your ringtones, but we're going to get a piece of your concerts, and we're going to get a piece of, whatever, however you want to break it up. There are carve-outs for that, so that you can make more of your money. And that's just a quick thing right there. But what I would be looking for is somebody who already is working on it before they come to me. And I'd be looking for somebody who actually has an idea of what they would like to accomplish next. Not just, I want to be hot. I want to be the next Chris Brown. I want to be, you want to go to jail? Just shoot somebody. You go. Rob a stove. Forget it. Don't even shoot nobody. I don't want nobody to die. Just rob a stove so you get caught. Stand there when you rob it. Get caught. Go to jail. That's where he was. That's where you know what I'm saying? Like, that's your goal. But if you're, and every artist I've ever represented I asked them, what is your idea of success? And then, like I remember Jules's, I remember everybody's idea of success. And the funny thing is, everybody had an opportunity to meet their goal, but most of them punked out when they saw it coming. Because anybody will tell you, I work
behind.
Yeah, I work my behind off for everybody that I work with, and I don't really take breaks. I don't really, because like going back to the blind thing, I have to work so much harder than people who can just find the information and take it for granted. I work my butt off, right? So when I do these things, that's why I was always in the studio with my people. I was always there. They didn't go without me, because I wanted to make sure they weren't sitting around trying to smoke out. We don't have time for that. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to make sure that my female artists weren't in there getting hit on and then them flirting back. I ain't got time for that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's just, because I've had it all happen. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you come back to me with, oh, this is heat. This is heat. No, you were definitely smoking if you thought this was heat. You know what I'm saying? You know, so this is where things are. And if anybody wants to get to that next place, then you have to step into the position you want to hold. You can't. So first off, for people who are trying to build the Innermix model, okay, because a lot of you are saying we're trying to do this with our friends and this, that, and the other. We're trying to, figure out how to make this work. I'm not going to give you our model, but I am going to give you a model that should work for you. But you have to understand a few things. And I'm just going to be straight off the top. This is that 100 y'all be asking for, okay? Look, if you are a business-minded person and you're the one who's driven and has a vision and all that kind of stuff, then take your position as the visionary. Not just somebody who's going to say yes, of course, yes. No, take your position as the person who has a vision, and then establish what that vision is with your partner. Figure out how you're going to get, what the overall vision is. Make sure you're going the same way. Don't just make sure it's a cool idea, and because you have a skill set and they have a skill set, if those skill sets are not moving in the same direction, then you're really fighting a hard battle. Because as soon as y'all get to a certain point, you're going to try to veer off and go your own directions, talking about we're still doing the same thing, and then you won't see what you want accomplished really accomplished. It's not going to happen that way, right? So if you are, because this is just how most things are set up now, if you are the financier, then and not really what's that word? God, I was trying to figure out the name for that. If you're not really administration, if you're more of the financier and and all that kind of stuff, right? Then what you got to do is figure out how involved you really want to be, so that the expectations that people have for you are not above where you really want to be. Me and my other partner had this discussion. We've had this discussion. I've had this discussion a few times, because I need to know, are you really involved, or are you just waiting to see what I do so that you can hop on? Because that seems to be, what I've experienced in the past. And then everybody's great when they're at the show, but where were you when it came time to put stuff together to be, and an excuse that doesn't work for me, that works with other people. And this is something that, if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot take this excuse. Don't get extreme, but this excuse does not work for every situation. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I was busy. Oh, the family. Because I have those same things. So for me, if you say you're going to do something, then find a way to make it happen without it getting in the way of the things you also want to experience. Because, not everybody's going to be, not everybody's a workaholic. Let's just be real. Not everybody's going to do that. But figure out your role, declare your role, so that people know what to expect. So that way, if there's something that's not being fulfilled, like for me, I'm not driving to these things. Right? It's not going to happen. And if Jules doesn't want to be the driver for these things or go somewhere, then my wife, she's not going to be available every time I need to go somewhere to do something, then that means that we have to find a transportation solution. Okay? If you are the financier, but you don't really want to be involved with the day-to-day operations, and then the person who's doing the day-to-day operations needs, extra help, then you're going to then the financier and the person doing it day-to-day have to find a solution for the assistance, whether it's through an intern, whether it's through a program, mentorship program, something that's going to get you the extra hands you need to accomplish the overall goal of the company. If you don't take the time to figure out where the holes are and how to plug it, then you're not looking for success. You're looking to say you have a company. So you can impress your friends.
Bragging rights.
Yeah, you're just looking for bragging rights. You just want to say you got this, you got that, blah blah, right? So Jared's like, real talk, Colby. But it's just, it's real, like, I don't make excuses for why things can't be done. I understand why certain things can't be done, and I even understand. I did, like, we used to call our clients on our management. We had the special circumstances crew, because, like I said, father of 4, had a job and was out slinging CDs, so he couldn't do a whole bunch of things that other artists would be able to do. Jules was driving 2 hours to get out here, 2 hours to go home, and her work schedule was ridiculous. So I had to create a system that was going to work to put her into the marketplace. Everybody that was signed to us had a very unique system. There was no standard system in what we were doing. So and then out of all of those artists that we represented, I took a piece of all those systems that I created, because truly I created those systems, thanks to the inspiration of God. Because some of these people, you wonder, how did they get home? But took all those, and then took, the things that I saw with, Innermix and stuff, and that's where the Innermix formula, that's how come I can't give you an Innermix formula, because it comes from so many different things that I had to go through over, so many years before I even met Jules. And so you guys are trying to figure out, well, what do we do? How do we become profitable? Well, the question is, do you really want to be profitable, or what is your goal? Is your goal to generate an income, or is your goal to generate popularity so that you can build an income based on sponsorship? Do you want, you entertainers out there, do you want to have a product that you can sell to people, or so that they can supplement your bottom line, or do you only really care about becoming popular enough so that you where was that? Popular enough, I had that 50 Cent syndrome. Or do you want to build up to become strong enough where people will pay you to be the entertainer that you are? So whether it's acting, singing, whatever, is that your goal? And are you trying to hold it within a company? If that's the goal, then that means that if one of you is the financer, the other is the strategic, blah blah, because both are needed. Trust the brother, right? Then what's going to happen is then you have to say, you have to know what your yearly income is, not as a company, but as a financer. After that, you have to say, this is the percentage that's going to this company. Ask anybody who started a business; they'll tell you this is the percentage that's going into the company. And out of that percentage, what are the goals for the company? So you can figure, as opposed to saying how much is it going to cost to do this, how much is that, to figure out what the yearly budget is. Break it down to the goals. That way, you can say, let's only do this for this section of the year, and then save a piece of this so that we can roll it into next year's budget, so that we can really go out next year. This is how record labels do it when they have new artists. This is what every company does. They say, let's do this. Let's for instance, let's work on our marketing and branding this year. So next year, when we release a product, everybody knows the brand. We'll release 2 small things this year so that people at least see us doing something. And then next year, we'll blow them out of the water because now they know the brand. Okay, cool, but you got a plan. You know what I'm saying? But remember, you're only basing it off what the financer is. You're not basing it on any other revenue streams. You might do a show, you might, get an acting gig, you might whatever, but you might. The only guarantee you have is the finance, the financier's budget until that point. So Jamie's like, can you slow down? Rewatch it. Jamie's recording. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I feel like people are just not hearing the reality of stuff anymore because reality shows have taken you out of reality. So true. And so I recommend, if you guys do the search for 50 Cent on the Breakfast Club morning show, he runs down a lot of this stuff already for you too. Because it's very important that you understand what you're really in right now, so that you understand what it's going to cost to make it happen. And there's always a cost. And I'm sorry, I'm hearing all these things. I can't even remember the name right now, but this dude just said, straight G'd up on your explanations, man. I'm guessing you from the Bay. But anyways, but it's just a real thing. So you have to get ready. If you are going to drive forward, if you're going to build a good reputation, first off, be known for doing good business, because that way when you don't have the money to do the kind of business you want to do, someone will come along and say, I'll do it for less because you do good business, because you have a good reputation. Don't wait till the last minute to do anything. Plan it. Talk to the people. Even if you can't do it, because something's come up or whatever, talk to them. Don't treat them like, oh, well, they'll just deal with it, whatever. Everybody matters when you're doing business. Don't think they don't. Now, I'll tell you, how do I say this? You are going to meet some unscrupulous people no matter what industry you're in. Oh, heck
yeah.
Okay? But they matter too. You can't write them off. Fine. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. No, because we all have to learn that too. But they matter too, because they're just a step for you. And if you don't respect the steps that God puts in front of you, then those steps will disappear, and you'll ask yourself, why am I still on the same level? How come nothing's changing? How come? So then when people start asking you a bunch of questions about where you are in your career and when's this and when's that, whatever, you're not going to be able to answer them because you never respected the steps. You're going to be like, well, I didn't like the whatever. Look, she's, I was going to give you a Jesus example, but, but yeah, I'm going to give you one. Jesus didn't necessarily like all the, didn't necessarily, want to be around all the people he was around all the time, because they had some unscrupulous ways. But he realized that we all matter, because we all have some unscrupulous ways if we really just break it down, but we all matter to him, to the point to where he says, but I love you, and you're just a part of the journey to the, so I'm going to be on the journey with you so that you can get to salvation, so I can open up the doors of salvation for you, that kind of stuff. But it's a journey, it's a trip, and you have to respect every step of that trip. You have to, especially if you're a leader, oh, heck, you have to be able to put more work in than the people you're asking to work for you.
But at the same time, though, you do want to have a good eye of discernment. There are some things that are not for you.
Oh,
there are things that are for you. There are some things that are very much not for you. So you have to understand the difference between that too. Don't take everything that comes to your door either. Oh
no, that's why you look at it and you evaluate whether it's going to be something that's going to help you or hurt you. But I'll tell you, if you're, I can speak for entertainment. I can speak for a few other business things. But for entertainment, everybody wants something from you. Figure out if it's a price you can pay. That's how you'll be able to determine if it's for you or not. You know what I'm saying? Like if they say they want jewels on top of a car and a bikini, I can't pay that price.
No, you cannot.
I can't pay that price because I don't want to see it. I just can't. I don't. You know what? Maybe she. Jules might. One day say, you know what? This is my idea of body and ideal body, and if you don't like it, then don't put me on your. Don't ask me to do this no more. You never know. She just might.
Nope.
Yeah. Oh, we can talk about it. We can consider. We can. How
about this? I'll do it if you do it.
Okay.
Right.
Exactly. It'd be so funny. Having a Tyler Perry moment.
You in a bikini? Oh no.
They ain't got enough Photoshop for that. He's like, we gotta use the wand. Use the wand. Isn't that a wand we're looking? No. Anyway, so those are just a few of the things that you have to know what you expect for yourself. If you don't know what to expect from yourself, then you will not know what to expect for the company you're trying to build. If you don't know what you're trying to, what you expect from the company you're trying to build, then you're not going to really go anywhere past a certain point. You'll drive forward, you'll do all the things, but then you won't. Let's be real. If you're not involved on some level with the company you're trying to build, then you're not going to know how to run it when if.
Well, you're going to burn out.
You're going to burn out. You're creative, because I was thinking about this because I got faced with this issue with a question. They said, the person was the strategic part of the business. They said, well, I need a few weeks off because I've been working nonstop for about 3 years. So I'm like, understandable, right? Mm-hmm. But nothing happened in that 3 weeks to move the company forward, to process things moving on. Nothing took place because they weren't in their position. And so when they came back, they literally said, I think I'm done. Because things don't move, change, evolve, escalate. They don't, nothing happened during the time I left. And yet, the things that need to take place were not really difficult things. You weren't asking for a strategy. You were just asking for implementation of things that were already in place. Stuff like that. So, he was hot. He said, because he told me how much money he lost. So he was hot. So I said, well, the thing is, did you expect for it to get done? That's the real question. Did you expect that it would be done, or did you just hope that it would be done? And they said, I think I only hoped it would be done. I said, well, if the people don't know that you expect certain things from them, then they're not going to move in that because they don't know what your expectation is. They just wanted to make sure you had a company to come back to. They didn't think about the fact that the company should still move forward when you're gone. And but I had this discussion with my old business partner too. I said, when I'm not around, like I went away to train to become a medical massage therapist, nothing happened in that whole time that I was gone to move the company forward. Everybody waited till I came back to my seat, and that pissed me off. That irritated me. Why do I have to be in my seat for the thing that we're all doing together to work, to move forward? That didn't make any sense to me. So we had a very long, somewhat loud conversation about it. So, but it just doesn't make sense, at all, because that's not how families work. The trash don't go out because you ain't here. What? That don't make no sense. So, but
that happens all the time, apparently.
So it's just a very interesting thing. Learn what you need to learn about, basically. If you want to move forward, and I just know this is the season we're in. I mean, this is real. You want to move forward, then you're going to have to become very proactive about the things you want to move forward in. And then if you say there's not enough time in the day, it's because you've probably allocated things into the wrong areas. It's real, because God's not going to give you more than you can bear. And he's always telling you that he's going to give you a season where you're going to be able to rest. He's going to give you a season where you're going to be just active all the time, pushing forward. I believe we're coming into that active season. And in that, you have to have the ambition and the drive to push past the things that are going to try to slow you down, try to hinder you, try to stop you, because things will try to stop you. But that's what happens when you're trying to grow. Growing pains. We had a show on that. I think it was on the radio, but growing pains. We do go through these things. And then as for your question about what do we expect from each other, and what do we expect as Innermix? Because I've been talking this whole time, we're going to start with Joel's. But the question is, as members of Innermix, what do you guys expect from yourselves and each other, and then what do you expect from the overall company of Innermix? So I'm going to throw that to you, because this is the last question we're answering before we check out for the day, but we will do a continuation of something similar to this next week.
As far as my own expectations, well, I'll start with my expectation for D. I believe he's already far and beyond surpassed my expectations, because he pulls me when I'm not fulfilling my own expectations. So yes, we're equal partners, but just like any household, we consider this also a household. Even though it's a business, it is a household in its own way. And just like any marriage, this is a business marriage, and there is a head, and there is the, I guess, quote-unquote spouse kind of position. But D is the head he's the visionary. He's the one with, he started leading me as when I was just an artist, and he's pushed me and supported me through up to this point to become what we are now, and continually moving forward. So I expect that he continues to do so, which he does, and I expect also for him to not give up on me, give up on Innermix, give up on the people that we come in contact with, because that's his track record. He doesn't do that. I also expect him to also need time for his family. I also expect him to need some personal time for his own development, own self-analysis, own whatever. Just everybody needs personal time. I expect him to take some, because sometimes he doesn't. So I'm glad he went on vacation, and got some rest that he had really needed. And I expect him to continually push and be the head of the prayer, and be head of the spiritual aspect of the company as well, because that's been his role, and he's been doing it magnificently. Um, and as for me, I expect myself to I think I need to step up myself. I need to be more. I expect myself to be more self-motivated. So it's sometimes hard, and not to give excuses, but it is sometimes hard when there's a lot of things on the plate, and things sometimes, you see the big ones and not the little ones, or sometimes it just all kind of gets mushed in and you don't know what's what. And it's another food analogy, but yes, it gets difficult. And so sometimes to pick out the things that are unnecessary, the bones and the whatever crap that you don't really need, it gets difficult, and you get sidetracked, and you get, I think sidetracked is the best word. Um, and so I expect myself in the next year to be more self-motivated, to be more driven than I have been, to be more involved than I have been, and to to be more influential. I would like to be more influential. And some people say that I've done this and I've done that, but I would actually do more. I would expect myself to do more. As for the company, I expect it to really, and this is for the near future and also for the far future, that I expect it to really make a difference. I really expect Intermix to make a big impact on people and how they view things, and how they don't just go with the crowd and go with the wind, but really step up and make their own minds and make their own decisions, and be able to say, this is me, this is not what you expect me to be, but this is me, and this is how I see myself, and this is how I am, and I am proud to be that, and I'm going to be that, and to be the best that I know I can be. And I expect Intermix to instill hope and inspire people in that department, and help people with all the different situations and the different, and our track record also says that, slowly but surely we are doing that, and helping people to really realize there's more to life than just the little situations, or even the big situations, but there's a way out, and there's a way to get better, and there's a way of improving and keep moving, and progressing, not regressing or being stuck in the past, and letting that past haunt you and drag you down, but instead using that and the experience to move forward and propel you to become better. And I expect Intermix to be the forefront of that. Yeah.
Cool beans. I just wanted to say that for some reason. Um,
You're a dork.
I know, but you love me anyway, so.
Sometimes.
All the time. All the time you love me.
Sometimes.
Have to. You have to. My wife has decreed it, therefore it must be. So, okay. So what I expect from myself is, what I expect from me is, hard work, and a clear, like a motivated, to stay motivated, to stay moving forward, to stay, and to be aware of the things that are going on around me, my family, my church, Intermix, and all the things that God has placed in my path. So my thing is to stay spiritually. So I expect that I'm, to continue to move forward, to continue to stay stronger, to continue to see hope and life and joy in the situations that otherwise seem to be dreadful, downright ugly, and just like, why me, Lord? But that's kind of been my track record. Like I'm like, well, I was feeling bad today, but it was really funny kind of bad, so I'm okay, because I've learned that I've gone through enough bad stuff to where I just smile. I gotta laugh. Eventually, stuff gets so bad that all you can do is smile. And then when you start smiling, you're like, it really wasn't that bad. It was really kind of funny. Because if this were happening on a TV show, I would definitely be laughing. And I started to look at things that way just because it helped me move things forward. But I expect, from me, I also expect to, in that being aware, to be more aware of what I need and to say the things that I need. Because usually, when I don't, usually, depending on what the situation is, I won't say it. I'll just take care of it. But there comes a point when I'm realizing, especially after, the vacation and even a little before that, a lot of people that I admire have been telling me, you've done as much as you can do on your own. Now you have to start saying things. You have to start speaking and getting people involved in the things that need to take place next. And me, sometimes I have that thing where I don't want to burden people with stuff that I see that's just not on them, yet. And, something like that. And when I said it to my wife, she says, I didn't stop you from telling me that it's time for me to do such and such, but it's just this, so I'm learning to speak more. I'm learning to become a better leader. And I expect that I will become a better leader. And so that everybody can enjoy themselves more and get to the place that they really want to be. So my expectations of myself is all about not letting that fire burn out. And staying positive even when things just don't seem like they should be looked at as positive, and but I've learned that I can do it, and through Christ Jesus who strengthens me, I'm actually able to do that. So why not? Let's go. Let's keep it moving. And yeah, so that's basically, it covers pretty much everything that I expect. And I do expect to become more aware of the times when I literally need help, and I expect myself to be able to say I need help with something, as opposed to hurting myself to accomplish it myself. But especially when it comes down to my site, stuff like that, because usually if I don't ask, because usually I got fed up with the point where people didn't notice I need help, because I notice when they do. So I expected them to be the same for me, and I got to get over that. So now I expect for me to be able to just say I need help with this, and whatever. And let's see. And then with Jules, my expectation with Jules is really, y'all funny. They're like, keep it 100. My expectation with Jules, honestly, is that she will dominate everything she puts her hands to. So, and I know it's possible. You see what I'm saying? I know that it's there, and I have no doubt about it being there. So everything. So once Jules focuses in on something, I know that it's taken care of. It's so I expect that over the next year or two, that it's going to be a new kind of focus, because we all grow, we all mature. So the old stuff, won't take care of the new way. That the new days, you can't survive on old batteries when you need the new batteries to keep your stuff moving. So you got it. It just, so with her, I expect that she's going to continue to be the Jules' number one role in my life, whether she knows it or not, is to calm me the hell down.
Did not expect that.
Because I think about, because y'all, okay, like when I talk business, when I get really into my business mode, I am so sincere. I don't even know if I can say that sincerely enough. I am so sincere about what I expect, because even though Jules is my partner, I still think of her as my artist, right? So, and I realize that. I still think of her in the same vein, not the same person, but the same vein that I think of my wife at times too, whereas like, what you doing? Get up, come on, we can do this, come on, let's go. And because they both react the exact same way to me, so it's the exact. And then when they get together, I really just can't deal with that too long. So, but it's this thing where when I get frustrated with the things that happen in entertainment, when I get irritated with the way that people are talking and treating me, or the way that they do certain things, I just honestly put on the music that made me want to sign Jules in the first place, and it calms me the hell down. It just does. It calms me down enough so I can think, so I can remember, so I can go forward. And then one thing I do expect, because of what we do, and because of who we are and because of what God has called us to, I really do expect that over the next year or so, Jules' awareness of the things that are going on around her is going to get much stronger, because it's already shown that it happens. Like that she's always growing, she's always maturing, she's always taking on new challenges and all that. I expect, that she is going to be more involved with the day to day, so that she can see the effect she has on the people more, because it's necessary, especially as a creative person. It's necessary. That's like doing a show but you in the dark. The hardest thing for most performers, this is a random fact, but every performer will tell you this, is to perform on a TV show where there's no live audience and you're just performing for the cameras. It's one of the hardest things. It's one of the hardest things ever, because so all you have is the camera people, and they're all standing to the side, so they're your audience. But really, you're just staring at a camera. You're in a dark room with some lights on you, so you can't even see nothing, and you're performing. And that can be one of the hardest things ever to do. And so what we do, here, whether online and stuff, is we are often just talking, knowing that you're there, but we can't see you because most of y'all don't click on here. We know that. But we know you there, so we, but the awareness of how we affect you and the way we affect each other and all that kind of stuff, that's something that I know is growing, but it has to. It just has to. That's what happens with maturity. So, but yeah, so I expect so much when it comes down to Jules, but I know she can dominate everything she sets her mind on and says it's going to happen. Like, there's this tone y'all probably have not heard from Jules, because the radio show have heard it, when we had the radio show, but you guys have not necessarily heard it. I don't know. I don't remember. But there's this thing where she said, no, it's going to happen. Right? Not the cutesy up here in the high voice thing. It's the, no, it's going to happen. Right? Thing where you're like, oh, well, hopefully what she just said was a good thing and not somebody going to die, because it's going to happen, Oh, I'm going to take him out. It's going to happen. Like, that's her stamp. That's that moment when she says, I believe it, I receive it, there's no doubt about it, it's there, right? And in that, you're like, so I expect that that we're gonna hear that a lot more, because we're in that season, we're in that push, go for it, whatever, we're in that place. So I expect that. I know that's, I know what's in her. I know she's gonna dominate everything she puts her hand to. So it's gonna happen. So, and it's funny. They're like, people are asking, which part of you was saying that right now? The friend, the you know what? I'll be honest with you. It's the manager in me. The friend in me, will say, but the friend in me will say, that, but friends always have a lot more to say. But the friend in me, but the manager, the businessman, the partner, those parts of me are always gonna, like, no, we got this. It's but I remember, like, Jules never got to hear the sales pitch. She never got to hear the confident pitch of when I was representing her as her manager. She never got to hear what boardrooms got to hear when I was talking about her, or Sony Records in Japan, what they, they were like, damn, but everything I say is true. I'm not puffing it up. I'm not, stretching it out to make it look pretty. I don't have time to make it look pretty. I'm just going to be really real with you. And literally, whether it's acting, singing, I ain't never seen her really dance, y'all, but I believe that, but I believe if you really put her in there long enough, she'll get that too. But but I do know that acting, like her dedication to the acting and the singing, the performing, and the writing, and the understanding of, I expect that her experiences over the last year and a half will touch the lives of those who she, and when she starts to write these things and actually starts to put them out in the music, I expect that they're going to make a lot of people say, thank God someone understands me. Like, that's what I expect, because because I've already seen a lot of the effects that, her story and things like that have had. So, yes. As for the company, I expect Innermix to become a world-recognized brand. I expect that Innermix will grow, will mature, and will affect people's lives in a way that makes them say, I have value. And like today's show is all about what do you expect? What do you expect, from yourself? What do you expect from the people around you? Are you valuing yourself correctly so that way you're not selling yourself short? Right? Like it took a team of people to help me understand that I should be charging for my time. I remember Jules was at the table. Everybody was there, right? But because I like to help people. I do. But the team also said, well, you should not underestimate your actual monetary value, right? But before I could ever get to that, I had to understand that I actually have a value outside of being the person people call when they want something. Well, the same thing comes down, it comes down to when you learn and vocalize what you expect from yourself, then you actually have determined in that section that you're talking about what you expect, how much your value has increased or decreased based on your view of what you bring to the table. So, Janine, she said she's asking, did it? For a minute, I thought you could hear what I'm hearing. I was tripping. But did I say stripping? I'm tripping.
Oh, please. No.
Janine's asking, did it shock me to hear that? To hear you say that I'm more of the leader of, like the visionary for Innermix. Yeah, head of Innermix. And girl, have you seen this head? I'm not shocked at all. No. No. Really, what it is we automatically step into certain roles. Like, honestly, Jules can go into, like, okay, this is something that used to irritate me, but now I appreciate it. Okay, but that's because I'm older. I ain't got that kind of time. Okay, to be irritated. It just, I'm just being real with you. Like, I will go, but this started when I was younger. My friend Randy used to do the same thing to me, so I should have figured that was going to keep on happening throughout my life. But I will go set up something and work hard to get things set up and do things a certain way, right? I'll leave for a minute or whatever because, I might forget something like a camera. I don't know, right? Then I come back and Jules has fixed, corrected, and made everything look better, pretty, whatever, right? And so my first mind might be, well, why weren't you here the other day when we first put this together, right? But then I'm like, hell, it's together now, let's go, right? But my friend Randy, I used to have the hardest time keeping track of my bills and stuff, and one day I had collection and all this stuff coming at me, and I had to organize all my stuff to say, look, I can't pay y'all, right? So I'm struggling because I can't see the little postmark stamp thing on there, so I'm working on this thing for like 2.5 hours. Randy shows up, and he's like, oh, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm just trying to put this in order so I can do it. He's like, oh, no problem. This goes here, this goes here, this goes here. I said, man, well, I can't say what I really said to him, but I said, I'll just end it with you, I can't stand that you can do that mess, because I spent so much time doing this, whatever. So me and Jules, we get in where we fit in, and I have so much confidence. I think that's what this extra little space in my head is for, is the confidence that I have when it comes down to seeing people seeing their potential. I mean, we have an intern that would literally not have a career if I didn't have a vision for her career. Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally. And my wife reminded me of that, recently. And I was like, wow, that's so true, but I'm so confident in people's abilities. Once I get to know what they're good at, they don't know it like I know it till they walk into it. So when it comes down to Innermix stuff, we are partners, but I have a different kind of vision for what we do. But it's also because I'm not afraid to what's the word? I'm not afraid to motivate. But I like it. I like seeing people break through, walls and barriers and things that the other. Because really, that's what we're coming up against now. Anyway, we're about to hit a new educational wall, barrier, or something, and there's always an emotional break, right? When that happens, always. Ask any actor, any singer. There's always an emotional break when you're about to go to another level. Well, in the way it works with Innermix, I usually have to go first. That ain't right, by the way. We're going to pray about that.
Nope.
Jules, you don't need to change things. Nope. Sometimes change is good. Jules, sometimes change is good.
That's fine.
Jules, yeah, I know it's fine. Change is good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, our expectations for our company, our expectations for each other, I do have I have very high expectations for Jules. Not that they're unreachable, because they're not. I just have very high expectations, and I know. I think Jules said it a couple weeks ago. I think we got comfortable in certain areas because it's just status quo, routine, whatever. And not that it's an excuse, but we've had a very busy year this year, and most of it wasn't even Intermix related busy. Most of it's been family and stuff. So, but we've had a very busy year. But I think that things have gotten a little comfortable, and but I expect that when that fire hits, you want to be in a place when, and I tell this to my wife all the time, I want to be in a place where when tragedy hits, I don't have to wonder if I got to lose something to be able to be there for someone. And the only way you can really do that is to be in a place, is to work hard to get to where you need to be, so that way when things hit, you have a system in place that will take care of itself, so that you can take the time to be with family, to take a vacation, to do those kinds of things. And it's just important. Like Jules wants me to take more time for myself. I'm learning that I need to, but at the same time, but I'm also learning that my sense of community and my sense of what it is to be there for somebody and all that kind of stuff is way different than what other people expect. So the reason I work so much, and I had to discover this, is because this is the closest I get. Doing stuff for Innermix is the closest I get to my sense of what community is, which is to be there for people, to understand people, to be aware of the things that people go through, and to let them know that they're not by themselves, because that's what the environment was when I grew up. So and then when people matter, so people matter to me, and it's not just a thing I say. It's just their well-being, it matters to me. And and I was gonna say this before we go, but I think you called your name. I think you called yourself Shishi. Shishi was right. That's how come I had to flip the screen off for me so I could read what she was really saying. But Shishi is going through some horrible things right now, just horrible. And so when I was writing to her, I figured y'all didn't need to see my head down writing, so I put everything out. But Shishi, the things that you're going through, you're not going through on your own. It is very hard. I mean, you must have missed the beginning of the show, but it's very hard to lose a parent, and it's very hard to feel like nobody understands the pain you're in. And it's also very difficult to be going through the kind of transitions you're going through. But, we understand. I definitely understand. And it's important for you to know that when you go through, you're going to go through, but you're going to get through. And then that way you'll be able to be there for you'll be able to be there for somebody in a way that they're not there for you right now. I've had some very interesting things happen to me over the last couple of weeks. And I found out that people don't know how to be there for me the way I'm there for them. And at first that irritated me. Now I understand that they just haven't been through these things in their life yet. They haven't gone through these things. Your friends are not going to understand the pain you're going through because you're the first one to lose a parent. So they don't know how to be there for you. And what your friend told you, basically she told her friend that she's just hurting, she doesn't know how to deal with it, and all her friend said is, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't really know what to say. And and she said it made her feel even worse because her whole thing was, but you should know me well enough to know that I just need you to be here with me. She's got
Sometimes you don't even have to say anything.
No, you don't. But it's just one of those things. Like, I mean, she lost a parent. She's got a brother who, and I've been hearing this a lot. People who are turning the age where if they have a mental disability, it becomes active and stuff like that. So her brother is going to court. This is going on. She just needed a friend who, because her husband's there. Her husband is, there. But sometimes you need your friends, the people who hang out with you and stuff like that. And so it's hard, and I'll tell you, I know exactly what you're going through because I've been through some of this stuff very recently, and it's very hard. It takes a very big emotional toll on you, and I'm about to be like Jules. I don't want to cry on the show though, because I'm too small. No,
Shut
but
up.
but it tears at your heart. It tears at the very fabric of who you are, and you're trying to still be strong for everybody around you, and but you're being forced to make decisions for loved ones that have passed and ones that are here that you never thought you would ever have to make. You thought somehow they'd take care of themselves, and I understand that. It's amazing how we try to not think about you know how to do these things, but these things are the reality. And so I understand it I understand it in the most sincere way that these things hurt, but at the same time you're going to have to go through and get through so when somebody else approaches you, because you don't go through for no reason, and when somebody else approaches you because they're hurt, because like I don't think about this much, but I know that as much as like if this ever happens in Jules's life where she has to deal with the loss of a parent, because it's going to happen one day, but, she nobody ever wants to think about it, but I I know that as much as she would try to push me away, because that's how she do. She's like my mama. She is. She's like my mama in that way. I know that it's important that somebody who's been through this is with you, even if they don't say a word. That's how my friend Randy was. He didn't have to talk to me and comfort me. He was just there, so I wasn't in things by myself. And often the first thing we do is try to handle things emotionally by ourselves. And but that's not the way family does things. That's not the way friends do things. I've gone to funerals for people who I knew their sibling, or I knew the daughter or the son, never knew the parent, and I was still there, and they said, but my presence there showed them how much I love them,
Of
stuff like
course.
that, and it's a very meaningful thing. I've had to give, for lack of a better term, last rites to one of my good friends that I had in high school. He passed away earlier this year. I had to, last year, I had to go, I had to go talk to him about giving his life to Christ, and he died the next day. So I've had a very incredible year. That I think about it, Jules. I've really had a very,
Hmm.
very incredible year. But the thing is, she is, you're gonna, um, they may not be aware of the effect they're having on you right now, but don't get bitter. I know it's disappointing, but don't get bitter, because as you get better, they're going to learn that, because these times come for everybody. And as long as you continue to say, I will be there for them, they may not know how to be there for you, but that's where they are in their life journey. And it's good to understand that, so that you know that you are going to do your best for them when their time comes. It's very important. Um, and all I hear is it's interesting, but all I hear is uh, she's basically saying, "Thank you for taking the time out. I thought you guys were going to leave without um, even talking to me." That's not going to happen with Intermix, baby girl. That's just not going. That's not going to happen. Um, but it's, she's like, and she's saying that, Jules, you have a very beautiful spirit, and when you cried earlier, it helped her to cry because she had been unable to. So,
Hmm.
um, so, um, but yeah, so she's basically saying it's hard, but she just needed to know that she wasn't by herself, and right now she feels very alone. And um,
You're not alone.
yeah, it's you know it's these things are, I mean, and I can't say it enough, but these things are very difficult. And um and but the one thing that I know that's going to help you make it through is understanding that nothing escapes God's sight nor his notice. And if these things are happening and these things are happening and the people are coming to you, it's because it's not too much for you to bear. It just hurts a lot. But that's like having children. It hurts a lot, but you can still bear them. So what I want you to do is, while you're making the decisions that you have to make, while you're going through the things you have to go through, thank God for giving you the strength to make it through. You're not going to be stuck in this place. And in the meantime, while you're doing those things, you know, um, try to spend time with your friends so that you have a way of escape. Normally, the way I grew up, people would come to you and say, you know what, I know you're going through a lot of things right now, so let's go somewhere. I'm going to take you out, you know. And we don't got to talk about your problems, but you can't stay here and rest in them. We got to go out and do something. And since most of my friends are not in the state, I didn't really have that option. But spend time with some friends, and they may not understand, but you do need the escape so that you can think, breathe, and make it through. Okay, so she's just saying thank you so much. She appreciates the extra time. She knows that we're over our time, and and all that. So you're welcome, She. And I hope that this show has been helpful to a lot of people because it didn't go the way I planned it at all.
No,
not at all.
Never. Does it ever really? No.
It used to. I don't know what happened. We used to have this one topic and it just go through from beginning to end. It was funny. It was the radio show. We had no commercial breaks, here and there. Robbie 19. We had a little commercial. Intermix, that kind of stuff. But, girl, I don't know what's happened. Since we came to Hangouts, we really just be hanging out, just talking about real issues. So, maybe that's just what this is. Just talk about some real issues. So, but anyway, you guys, love y'all a bunch.
Yes.
I'm feeling refreshed, feeling good.
Ding,
y'all been motivating yet? Jules is over there giving y'all love signs. It's that she shows me. But never. But anyway, y'all. You guys have a great
love you.
week. Yeah, we love y'all. Have a great week. If you guys want to follow us on Twitter, okay, that is Innermix_show. That's INNERMIX_show. Now, show is not SHO. Just because I'm black.
There.
Yeah, just because I'm black don't mean I'll be like for show. No. Innermix_show. Okay, for Facebook, just type in Innermix. You're gonna see our lovely faces. Y'all can find us here on Google. Oh yeah, let's go Instagram.
Innermix 360.
Innermix 360.
And 360.
Yes, don't spell it out. Somebody actually tried to find us on Instagram real quick, and they put in the 3, and then they wrote the word 60. I would have never thought about that. Okay.
That's creative.
But now, you guys, if you just type in Innermix, because we're doing really well, you guys can actually find our Instagram and you just put us into a search engine. So I'm trying to make sure that you guys can find us in the best way possible. And then Google Plus, which is the first thing that seems to pop up when y'all put in Intermix after you correct it from saying Intermix because they think we're a store. It's Plus Intermix Show. Okay? No, we're not necessarily on YouTube other than when you guys are watching this. We do have another thing, but, we'll fill y'all in on later because y'all been asking for YouTube. Y'all wondering if we're going to put songs up and all that. We'll tell you about that at the end of the summer. Anyway, it's been a great time.
Have a good night, and we will see you next week, Monday, 9 p.m.
Yes. And be good to yourself and each other.
Yes, please. Oh, my God. You did not just do that. Oh, my God. I am going to sign off now because of that.
Do you know where that came from? Do you know what show?
Jerry Springer.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you know.
Please. I know.
So you're a Springer fan. Okay. Bye, y'all.
Good night. Bye.